Hi everyone, my name is PK, and here I have Brook Garner, who's got a really cool story. She has flipped a couple of houses. She moved from Melbourne to Brisbane to do so. She's also invested in a few investment properties, and she's just going to take us through her property journey. When we hear or listen to real people with real stories, including their successes and mistakes, the things that they've done really well, and the things they wish they didn't do, then that really helps us to accelerate our own journey. That really helps us to avoid those mistakes and get ahead so much more quickly than perhaps even them.
Welcome to the Oz Property Investment Mastery Podcast. My name's PK and I help busy people build passive income by buying top 5% growth and cash flow property and build a portfolio using data without wasting months doing research, spending weekends at inspection or catching flights, or dropping $10,000 to $20,000 on buyer's agents every single time. So if you're confused, lack confidence, and just overwhelmed with all the information and marketing misinformation available online and don't know where to start, then this show is for you.
It's very nice of you, Brooke, to make time and offer your kind of story, and I think it will help a lot of people because you've done very well in a short period of time.
Hey, great. Thank you.
All right, well, let's start from the start. So I think you were talking to me just before we hit record about how you moved up to Brisbane, and that's the first property you flipped. Could you just take us through on that journey?
Yeah, so I moved back home to Brisbane in 2015 from Melbourne, and my parents came to me with a bit of idea. They had property background themselves. They kind of wanted to help me get into property, but it was definitely no means a handout. They suggested that we buy a rundown property and we do the flip and renovations ourselves. We flip the property, sell it, and then when it comes time at the end, we'll just split the profits. And I thought it was a great idea, and I just jumped in. And and I didn't even realize the passion that I would get from it as well. So yeah, 2 years later, I blood, sweat, and tears quite literally went into that property. And then we sold it 2 years later, and my parents were so impressed with the work that I did and the amount of work I did. They just said to me, "Look, we're actually going to give you the entire profits for you to, buy property for yourself."
Yeah. So you really hustled to
Yeah.
get the portfolio that you have today. You really
Yep.
had to literally it was sweat equity. Are
Yeah.
you are you able to take
Yeah.
us through where you bought, what you bought at, what
Yep.
did you sell it at, how much renovation cost did you do, those
Yep.
kinds of things?
Yeah. So it was in Malcolm East in Brisbane
Nice.
in December 2015, and we bought it for 454,000. And we actually had to take it right back to bare bones. It was you couldn't live in it. It was one of those ones. So we took back to studs. I did everything from ripping walls out, painting, gardening, ripping out tree, everything manual labor that you can do without a trade. I did it
And do
with
you have experience in any of this stuff, or it was your first time?
my first time, but not my parents. So I grew up. I'm not the type of person that I grew up in that house. I grew up in that house. I'm not a type of person hey, I grew up in that one house. I was like, no,
Right.
we didn't do that. My parents were flippers.
Okay.
So they would buy a house in the bad street. 5 years later, we'd sell and move on, and it would be a beautiful house. So I think I got the bug from them. So they've done it before. So yeah, I kind of took their lead.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and so how much did you spend in renovation costs, and then how much kind of profit was there?
Yeah. So I think we did go a little bit crazy.
Right.
I think I think it was just over 100,000 we spent in renovation costs, which in 2016 was probably a lot of money. I mean, now it'd probably be
Doesn't
double
get
that.
you much now, right?
Yeah, no. And that was brand new, not brand, new kitchen, new bathrooms, flooring, the whole shebang. And then we sold it. So 454, 100 grand in, and sold it for exactly 654. So 100 grand profit, maybe just under after taxes, maybe a little bit less. So yeah.
Right. But that was kind of like your PPOR, so there was no capital gains.
Yeah. So initially the first 2 or 3 months I was there, like literally, like I would go to work, go to the house, go home, eat what I could and fall asleep and just repeat. And that was 3 months of just not seeing anyone and just working my butt off. And it was exhausting to say the least, but I had to do it because I was going to move in there. So I had to get that part ready. And then when I moved in, we still had like a lot of renos to do, but I just needed to get in there. So we had to get the kitchen and bathroom in at least. And then I painted while I was living there. So yeah. So but yeah, that was my PPOR.
And you were just doing, because I think you were saying before that you work at Queensland Rail, you have like that job. Did you have that job back then, or were you just doing renovation full time?
I did have another job, but I wasn't with Queensland Rail then. So,
Gotcha.
But yeah, I did have another job then, and I was working part time, but at the time, but then almost full time at the house. So yeah, it was full on, like, but it was a great result.
Crazy. That's crazy. But you made $100,000 clean. It sounds
roughly, yeah,
roughly speaking. And like back then, the Brisbane market, I mean, I feel that between 2013 and 15, Brisbane kind of went up a little bit, especially good areas like Mount Gravatt. But around 15, 16, 17, I mean, everyone in Sydney and Melbourne thought Brisbane was the next one to boom. But for us, I was in Brisbane at the time, I was like, no, it's not. Nothing's happening here. The economy is pretty flat. So to make money, you had to value add, and that's what you did. All right. And so then you were successful enough to want to repeat that from the sounds of things.
Yeah. Oh, I got the bug. So as soon as we got that chunk of deposit money, I then started my search, and that's when I went out on my own and ended up finding because just with I wasn't educated enough at the time about I thought, and this was my own fault, I should have looked into it. I thought you had to have a 20% deposit. I didn't know that you didn't have to. You could have gone 10 or so. Anyway, I was looking at properties where I could have been looking at a higher bracket possibly, but anyway, it is what it is. So I found this really old double brick townhouse, and it was in Robertson, which is near Sunnybank. And I just saw the potential straight away. It had beautiful cathedral ceilings. It was split level. Then it had downstairs double garage, completely original. And it was probably a little bit of an emotional buy, being a PPOR. And I just could see the value that it could have. So, yeah, I bought that one. And that was in February 2019.
2019.
And I hustled on the price too.
Yeah,
but I
what
could.
do you mean by
It was
that?
2019.
So, like, how did you hustle? Talk me through it.
So when I saw it, the agent was terrible, which I was like, this is great. So he ended up working for me. I think he'd forgotten who he was working for. But he was like, oh, the owner wants 340. And I said, and I did my own research, and I was like, there's no way they're going to get that. And then he was like, okay, we'll put an offer in. And so I said, all right. And then I kind of lowballed them. I said 300. And they were like, no. And then I was like, okay. And then I went up to 310 and they came back at 320 and I just stood my ground and I was like, nah. And he was like, oh, there's another party interested. And I was like, okay, we'll sell it to them. And
of course there's another party, right?
Yeah. And I just said, okay, well, you can sell it to them. And then he came back like 10 minutes later going, oh, actually, they want to take your offer. Like, oh my God. So, so that happened there. And then I ended up getting another 7K off at Building and Pest. So I got it for 303.
303.
Which was a bargain at the time as well. So
yeah, I mean, I just remember fondly to some extent, like pre-2020 days in Brisbane where you can just buy something and there's like no other offers and you have like 2 weeks to make a decision and the agent's like calling you. Nowadays, it's like, even if you're Brad Pitt, the agent's not going to call you back.
No, yeah, it's very different. I remember that was a very chilled environment back then.
Yeah. Cool.
Right.
And so you flipped this one as well. What were the kind of numbers?
I wouldn't. Well, flipped it, but I held it for about 5 years. I only just sold that this year.
Okay. Gotcha.
But yeah, I've put in again, did a lot of the work myself. Dad and I are quite crafty we found a kitchen on Gumtree and kind of manipulated it into the house, and I painted the cupboards and it just looked $1 million. It was really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're pretty like my dad's really handy. So yeah, we did again, kind of completely renovated it. And then my strategy turned to investing in about 2021.
Right. And
Yeah.
why did it? Because I mean, you had this good success, and your parents have always been flippers. Like, why did you decide to shift your strategy?
Yeah, it was a good question, because I was thinking of selling again in 2021, and I actually put it on the market in 2021. I did get offers, but they all fell through, luckily. But so yeah, I was thinking I'll put it on the market again. I'll sell this one and just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And the team I had around me, which was the same team we used in the Macrovat East flipping house, none of them were really available. Like I was saying to you before, it was during the time, I think, where renovations were, people were just renovating everywhere, and all my trades that I had were like, I'm busy for the next 6 months or something. So I was like, okay.
You're
And
like, I thought we had a relationship.
Yeah.
I thought we had something.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Aren't you only working for me? Yeah. So, but I had itchy feet. I was like, okay, I can't stand for this. I need to, maybe I should look at this investing kind of thing, and which is something I kind of had at the back of my head anyway. I just didn't think it would happen as soon as it did, kind of thing.
Got it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I think you were saying was the property you bought in Perth, was that your first buy and hold?
No. So the first, that was my second. So my first investment property bought was the one in Goodna in Ipswich City Council. Now this was, I've gotten lucky, I think, because I hadn't looked at like your videos or anything of the major research I had done prior to buying this. So I'd done a tiniest little bit of research. And I kind of bought this one on, it was a little bit emotional. I didn't overpay at all, but it was a bit of an emotional buy because it had Brisbane city views about this big. But it was right up onto the hill, and I was like, well, it's never going to flood.
Yeah.
And it had these Brisbane city views, and I was like, that's amazing. And I've always wanted a property with Brisbane city views.
Okay.
But that was the emotional pull.
Sure.
But having said that, I've been really good with structuring, like, I will not overpay kind of thing. So, and I've done that for all my properties. So just, I'm like pretty determined. But when this one came up in 2021, I actually went and looked at it, and this was the time when the market was crazy, and there was, I'm not kidding, 80 people there. I was like, oh, whatever. So I left it. 2022 came around, and it came up on the market again, and I rang the agent, and I was just bullish. I was like, hey, I'm buying this property. And he was like, oh, okay.
That's what you said?
Yeah, I said that straight up. I was just like, hey, this address, and I was like, I'm buying this property. And he goes, oh, okay. And he goes, who am I speaking to? And I was like, oh, my name's Brooke, sorry. I said, I saw this property last year. And I said, why are they selling it? And he's like, oh, he said it was bought in a business, and they just like selling up their assets or business. And I said, okay. And then I said, well, I need to come and see it before the Saturday Open so I can put a contract in. Like, I was telling this agent how it was going to go.
I like that approach. It's definitely not humble, but it works.
And I'm sure that, like, I was just waiting for this guy to go, yeah, no, like, but he was lovely. He was like, okay, cool. Okay, can you do Friday? And I'm like, yep. And so I went there, and like, I'd seen the property before, but I just obviously wanted to view it again, and went there, and I said to him, bring a contract. And he said, okay. And I said to him, what are they after? And he was like, look, and he gave me a figure, like mid-3s. And I said, and I looked at the sales and stuff, and I was like, okay, that's probably, I'll play that game. Cool. So I went in at 365, and then it was on a contract, and then they had the open house on the Saturday, and he had other offers on the Saturday. But the owner just took mine because mine was on a contract. So if I didn't hustle, I wouldn't have.
Yes.
So
if you didn't presume the role of his boss and tell him exactly what to do and when to do it, then you wouldn't have got this property.
It wasn't
I'm just
like
joking.
yeah, no, it's fine. Well, it's not always going to work, right? Like I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just being myself actually, but without being rude, like I was just
Yes,
being
yes.
ruthless. But I think for him, he was like, cool, done deal. Like
So is he like well, like an associate, like not so experienced, kind of youngish type person?
he was young, lovely guy. I think
Yeah.
he was young. He definitely was, but yeah, no, I think he was just happy to have a sale, like quick one. Anyway, it
Yeah.
would have been a quick one anyway because he had all these offers after it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So,
think
but I
that's
ended
a
up getting because I have my brother-in-law's a structural engineer,
mhm.
so I get him to come and
Oh,
view my
right.
properties before I buy them for any structural issues.
Right.
So I ended up getting another 10K off from that purchase price. So I got it for 355.
Nice, nice. And I
Yeah.
think that's like a just a quick tip as well for anyone who's watching or listening. Like there's all in every listing or most listings across the nation, there's like the main agent, and they're normally like not to be ageist or anything. They're normally like in their late 30s or 40s, 50s. They've kind of been there and done that. They're very experienced, hard to rattle. And then there's
Mhm.
like an associate or assistant, and their picture and number and name is normally on the listing. Always
Okay.
call that person because they're a little
Yeah.
bit like eager for the sale. They're like want to prove themselves to their boss. They want to just like get it done. And then if you can kind of
Yeah.
not manipulate them, like, but just
Yeah.
kind of work to their weaknesses, you could say, of being desperate to sell. Not desperate,
Yeah.
but like just needing to get done. They want to impress. They have quotas to make. They have incentives to reach. Then you can get better deals. So it sounds like that's what you did,
Yeah. I mean,
inadvertently,
I
maybe.
didn't. I was just like, this is going to be mine. Like,
I love that. I love that. Oh, and so how much is that worth now?
I think that'd be about 450. I saw a one that sold recently, pretty much exactly the same condition, same land size, different area of Goodnub. Actually, mine was probably in a better area. It sold for about 452. So
Okay,
roughly about 450.
so
So
like a
in a
hundred
year,
thousand dollar gain.
yeah, about
Yeah,
105 in a year. Yeah.
not
So
bad.
got pretty good for the area, and yeah. So, but regrets, like the only regrets I have there is I didn't do enough research into the suburb.
Hmm.
um, it's worked out pretty good, but I think I got a little bit lucky there. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
So
it came with tenants, and they're still in there, and they're fantastic. And she looks after the garden. She's just excellent.
nice work. Nice work. All
Yeah.
right. So you got this one, and then your next one was in Perth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Correct. So that I bought that one in 2022, and then come 2023, that was when I extracted some equity from my PPOR again.
Hmm.
So I extracted equity for the Goodner House, and I extracted equity again. And this was a different approach this time because I'd realized, because that's okay. So from 2022 to about my second investment property, that's when I was really deep diving into like your channel. So the Perth purchase was a distressed seller and ended up buying a house in Coodinop, so Mandurah area.
Hmm.
It was a 4-bedroom, one bathroom, one carport house on a 720 block with a self-contained granny flat out the back.
Right. And what are your thoughts on like Perth? I mean, I know that you spent 8 months kind of absorbing lots of YouTube videos and things. The standard arguments for Perth are it's clearly the area or the city performing the best right now. And, another argument for Perth is that it's much more diversified away from the mining sector and it's so affordable. But then there's always like downsides. A lot of people say never buy in Perth because it's still a mining town. They are still a little bit burnt from the fact that it had two huge booms and then like a huge crash in 2013, 14, and they still think, oh, it's like a different country. Like, how did you, I don't know, did you have to convince yourself to invest there, or like how did it
Um,
make sense to you?
a little bit. I think I've multiple like videos that I'd seen really made sense, like with yourself as well, like you're saying it's not just a mining town anymore. There's a lot of infrastructure build, there's a lot of people moving there for lifestyle and other jobs, but also the fact that on another video I saw Perth is like the highest, people with the highest like paying job, like that is that second to Sydney, I think it was,
You're
And
second to Canberra, second highest
Canberra,
household
yeah.
income. Yeah.
Yeah. And the property prices aren't even close to the disparity of where it is. So and yeah, so kind of a few things like that screamed out to me, as well as just obviously where people were looking. Like when I started the research, I was like, oh yeah, this area, but then I was always behind the eight ball.
Hmm.
And because that had gone, like Toowoomba gone, like you said. And I remember, you think before getting educated that if I hadn't educated myself a bit, you'd look at a hot spot and go, oh, I need to buy there, but it's actually gone. Like, do you know? So
Yeah. It's a
I
common problem
realized
people have. Like they hear about a particular town or suburb or local government area on like forums or podcasts or whatever,
yeah,
YouTube videos. But the reason that it's being discussed is that already like hundreds of people have already bought
yeah,
there and it's already had that growth. And you're like,
yeah,
oh, and you're like against that brick wall. You're like, every time I find this area, it's like, no, everyone's already bought there. So it can be frustrating. And
mm,
unless you really know, it's hard to be kind of on the cutting edge or on the
yeah,
edge of that, if you know what I mean.
yeah, exactly.
So that was your second investment property.
Hmm.
And do you have another one, or is that did you stop there?
No, so yeah, I do have another one. So I had to get that loan. That was this year when interest rates are high and the banks. So I had to go through what's it called, First Mac for that bank. I'm with that WA property is with a second tier or third tier bank. So the third investment that came round about the same time was where I was my PPO. There was an old lady who owned next door, and I had always short backstory. I'd always said to her, whenever you're ready to sell, please let me know because I will buy it because they're just great townhouses, the location and just everything about them. And she said, yeah, no worries. And when I was under contract with Perth, I think it was literally a few days from being unconditional, she actually rang me and said, hey, I'm ready to sell. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I had to really kind of change my plan and thought, okay, I will. I said to her, look, can I get back to you? Give me 24 hours. I need to come up with a plan here because I'm under contract in Perth and I don't want to lose that deal. And I'm still going to buy a property, but I just have to shuffle the cards a bit.
Yeah.
And she said, no worries. So I came back and, yeah, I figured out the best way to do it was to sell my PPOR. And I did off market and got 2 offers. And, yeah, it was literally, yeah, it was lucky that I could just do it. Yeah, I don't hold any emotional attachment to property.
Mhm.
So I was like, yep, cool, I can do that. And then I moved in with my partner and yeah, and then bought that and also bought tenants with that too. So yeah.
Nice. Well,
And all in the
okay.
same year. Like literally, I think I sold, settled, sold again, like within like 4 months.
All right. So
Yeah.
you got this one in Brisbane, and whereabouts is that again?
Robertson, so near Sunnybank, right near
Right.
QE2 Hospital,
Got it.
right there.
Got it. And is your plan to kind of do that one up as well?
Um, at time, eventually, but now my again, like it's so funny. I've had this plan and it's changed again and it's changing again.
Uh-huh.
But I actually wanted to. My plan was next year to get out to Perth and do a few things to the Perth property and just set and forget.
Uh-huh.
But that's changed. I'm actually in a really fast accumulating phase now where I want to just keep going and just until I've got a certain nest egg, me and my partner, and then I will go back to renovating after that. So yeah, the plan's changed for me about 5 times.
Yeah. And it does, right? Like you can
Yeah,
start off with the best strategy, but things happen in life and
yeah,
you don't know when that's going to happen. I think the most important thing is just to be able to know what strategy you should shift to and
yeah.
whether it works for you if you're not taking too much risk or at the same time like not doing nothing at all because then you're just going backwards.
I know it's a cliche, but I do want to replace my salary and retire from my job there in 15 years. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
we're just
that's
getting really serious about it.
I like it how you've kind of, you did a couple of, well, one flip, and then you did another renovation, and then you sort of had to shift your strategy to buy and hold, and those properties are doing well, and now you're kind of, I would say, have a good foundation,
Yeah,
and you have enough trust in real estate as a bona fide vehicle to create wealth, to just double down, and you're
yeah,
building out a plan. And I think that's really cool. I mean, a lot of people don't have that trust in real estate for some reason, and maybe never buy property, or maybe just buy one property, and it's like, okay, that's enough for retirement. But it
yeah,
seems like you guys are just like doubling down, and
yeah,
just being like, yep, we're not going to be working if we don't want to in 15
yeah.
years. And I think that's a really cool attitude.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's not that I won't be working in 15 years. It's just the options, like you say, you give yourself
Exactly.
options. And
Exactly.
I kind of have a bit of an idea what I want to do, but it's something that I want to like garner like more and like think about it more and kind of develop it a bit more. So yeah,
Yeah.
so but did it like I think you said before you're loving the journey and the process, and I'm just it's so exciting for me. So I just
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. You can be like detached from the actual properties, like you said
Mm,
you are, but be really attached to the process of
yes.
property investing.
Mm,
Like that's what it is for me as well, except for
yeah,
my principal place of residence. I'm
yeah,
pretty attached to this place,
of
but in
course.
investment properties, it's like they're just kind of like units of wealth. They're not actually
Yeah.
apartments, but you know what I mean? They're just
Mm,
units of wealth. But I just you fall in love with the process because you see what it can do for just normal people, like no one
yeah.
starts off like with $1 million. You start off with
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
So
And
no, that's really cool.
when I sold my PPOR, literally like the last time I closed the door, I was like, "Thanks, champ," because I did really well from it, and it really leapfrogged me into where I am. I took equity out of it twice, and then when I sold it, I got over 120,000 in cash. Like it was
Yeah,
just great.
amazing, amazing,
So
cool. We'll
yeah,
we'll leave it there. But is there any
yep.
last piece of advice that you want to give to anyone who's perhaps, I don't know, perhaps in your situation 8 years ago, who really wants to get into the real estate market, and wants to achieve what you've achieved so far?
Just don't be scared. I think I was a little bit about investing, but I did research,
Mhm.
and it wasn't just like overnight research. Like I said before, it was like 8 months of like solid research. So, and that gave me the confidence to move forward. And whether you outsource it yourself or you do it yourself, outsource it or do it yourself, whatever you choose is the right way. I think.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. And just to emphasize what you said, that research, whether it's through paid sources or
Yeah.
completely free sources, it's really important to actually take the time. I know
Yeah.
everyone's busy, but you do have to
Yeah.
take the time to educate yourself, because there's really no substitute for that. So anyway, we'll leave it
Yeah.
there. Brooke, thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much for your time and your videos. Please keep them up. I really appreciate them.
I really appreciate, and honestly, like I get DMs or almost daily of people who say, "Oh, look, PK, I haven't done your course, but it's really helped me, and I bought this property." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm really happy." Like it honestly makes me really happy, even though
Yeah.
I have not got anything out of it, but I actually have, because
Mm.
they've watched hours of my videos, and they've
Yeah.
hopefully they're shifting their lives, they're changing their lives for the better. So that's a really cool thing to be part of that.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right, look, thank you so much, and thank you
Thanks,
everyone
PK.
for listening, and I'll see you next time. See you later.